Welcome to another huge episode of Triggered. We are just a couple of hours away from Joe Biden's State of the Union, but it's more like a state of absolute confusion, of degeneracy, of incompetence, of stupidity. But I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot of lies. Now, if Joe's able to actually walk to the podium and talk, he's going to give a speech full of lies. The White House claims that Joe Biden is going to try to explain how he's done more in 3 years than other presidents have done in 2 terms. If we're talking about the destruction of America, of our values, of Western civilization, maybe he's actually right. But if we're actually talking about being productive, if we're talking about things that are accretive to our greater good, then I would say not even remotely close. But thankfully, guys, my father will be delivering rapid response on Truth Social. He's going to be live texting it from Truth Social, so I'm sure that that's going to be pretty amazing, and more people will probably be following that than the actual speech. So we'll have some fun with that one. We're also going to be joined tonight by 2 incredible guests. We're going to have Ohio Senate candidate Bernie Moreno. That's the Trump-endorsed candidate for the United States Senate out of Ohio. He's got a primary, I guess it's next Tuesday. And so not this coming Tuesday, but the following. But obviously got to get that going, and you got early voting and everything like that. So I think Bernie Moreno is going to be great, a great addition to J.D. Vance, rock star senator. Actually got to spend a lot of time with J.D. last night in Washington, D.C., and we also have Breitbart News Washington Bureau Chief Matt Boyle, who's going to join us and lay out some of the biggest stories the rest of the media is missing. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm actually used to being on Matt's show, being the interviewed individual, and now I get to be the interviewer. So we'll have some fun with that one and have a cool conversation. So, guys, make sure you're liking, that you're sharing, that you're subscribing, so that you never miss one of these episodes, okay? Remember, you can also get Triggered on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you never miss an episode if you're traveling, if you're not perhaps by your computer, if you get your podcast that way, or if you know other people that, subscribe to those places and get their podcast that way, so you can get some more of the truth out, because God knows the mainstream media isn't going to do it, so they tell you to build your own, and we did just that. So check out MXM News, MXM, like minute-by-minute news, where you can get mainstream news without the mainstream bias. That's my news app. Created it so that you could see everything. And we'll actually show you even the left-wing stuff, and you can compare and contrast. But it's not like Google search where you get 400 pages of, the CNN version of the story, not the truth. So wanted to make sure we're fighting it on every battlefield out there to make sure we get the truth out there. So let's start by delivering a little reality check on the real State of the Union under Joe Biden, guys. Biden will claim tonight that Bidenomics is actually amazing. Now, don't believe your lying eyes, folks. Things are actually great. They're incredible. Joe will say this with a straight face. The mainstream media, big tech will probably back it. But back in the real world, folks, everyone knows that Bidenomics is an abject failure. Here's just a few statistics. These are important because people have to understand what's really happening. Food prices are up 21% since Joe Biden took office, okay? 21% in 3 years, okay? Median household income has fallen for 2 years straight, and credit card debt has hit an all-time high. Does that sound like an incredible economy to you? No, that sounds like we're on the brink of hitting a wall going 1,000 miles an hour. Biden's surely going to talk about immigration, and he'll pretend that he's not at all at fault. He'll blame Trump or Republicans because he opened our borders. The insanity won't stop. Biden's already said that he's done all he can do on the border, which is nothing, right? Which means he's done all he can do. I mean, do you believe that? I mean, he's done all you can do to actually open up the border. I agree with that. But to actually control the crisis, the invasion that's happening there, I don't think so. It's crazy. The illegals get that. Look at this guy at the border today wearing a Biden campaign shirt.
Es el presidente y la vicepresidenta de los Estados Unidos.
He said he's wearing the Biden campaign t-shirt so that he gets let into the country. Huh. Smart guy, actually. Joe Biden's open borders policies has let in 10 million illegal immigrants, including murderers, rapists, terrorists. The fentanyl crisis is going crazy. Human trafficking, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. Not exactly great things. But Joe Biden is directly responsible for all of that and the death of so many Americans, like Laken Riley, who I'm sure he's not going to mention tonight. The real state of the union is that America is poorer and more dangerous because of Joe Biden's awful presidency. And it's not just Joe Biden, folks. This is Democrat policy. He is doing all the things the Democrats said they would do. We cannot let this just hang on Joe Biden. Their entire political party is about all of these things. Things are not only bad at home, but they're worse abroad. There's a war in Europe. There's another one going on seemingly in the Middle East. A container ship just sank after being shot with a missile fired by the Houthis, a terrorist group that Joe Biden took off the terrorist list. Can't make this stuff up, folks. So what's Joe Biden's solution to Hamas in Gaza? He's reportedly going to announce tonight at the State of the Union that American troops are going to build a port in Gaza so that aid can enter. Biden is going to put Americans in harm's way to help Hamas. He is rushing to do that to please the radicals in his party. He'd rather send American troops to Gaza to build a port there than to send troops to our border to protect our nation. Speaking of troops, though, guys, and troop deployments, New York Governor Kathy Hochul has deployed the National Guard, to secure New York City's subways. This is remarkable for a couple of reasons. First, just 4 years ago, we were told that it's the nicest place to live and it's fascist to use the National Guard and it's to fight off violent crime. You can't do that. Remember when my father was talking about sending him to like Portland and Seattle and these places that were under siege? Yeah, no, that's the move of a fascist. But now we're using the National Guard to guard New York City subways. Then we're told that it's a right-wing conspiracy theory that New York subways are dangerous. How dare you say New York subways are dangerous? How dare you? Well, they're not safe. If they were, we wouldn't be deploying the National Guard. You don't like someone ripping a crack pipe in the seat next to you? Come on, guys. That's racist. That's just life in the big city, folks. These are the lies they tell us every day. New York subways got dangerous because of people like Letitia James, the Attorney General. James wants to target political opponents instead of keeping New Yorkers safe. Well, today, Letitia James was reminded of just how unpopular she is from the people she's supposed to be representing, who have been forgotten, who are dealing with crime-riddled streets, murder, rape, drug use. It doesn't stop there. But now, she got drowned out by Trump chants at a New York City Fire Department event. Watch this one.
Today we are making history, swearing in our first African-American woman chaplain of FDN.
Guys, these leftists don't understand just how unpopular they actually are with the people they're supposed to represent. They don't care because big tech will do their bidding and they're loved by the mainstream press. But that's the reality of what's going on. That's the fire department in New York, the great men and women of the FDNY. That's why John Kerry feels free to say crazy things like Russia's war would be more popular if they cut carbon emissions. I'm not kidding, folks. He actually said that. These are the people that we're told were the adults like back in charge or something like that. Watch this for yourself.
Russia is one of the largest emitters in the world. If Russia wanted to show good faith, they could go out and announce what their reductions are going to be and make a greater effort to reduce emissions now. And maybe that would open up the door for people to feel better about what Russia is choosing to do at this point in time.
These are supposedly serious people, folks. But yeah, again, I'm sure he's being lauded all over by the elites and otherwise. I'm sure he's never met actual real Americans and certainly wouldn't spend any time with them. Got some good stories from my Secret Service detail about him back in the day. I obviously would never betray their trust, but let's just say not exactly a man of the people. And so they keep doing it. They block out any bit of negative information. Rachel Maddow, Mad Cow, as many refer to her as, just called for news organizations to stop carrying my father's speeches live. They want to silence any opposition, any opposing view, and instead they just want to air their propaganda, which makes them look a lot like the North Koreans, okay? That's how their news agencies work. Very hard-hitting news brought to you by the great people at the mainstream media who've been lying to you for years. Look at Joe Scarborough say that Joe Biden is actually sharper and better than ever. He said this seriously, as though any human being, no matter how Democrat, crazy left-winger you are, does anyone really believe that Joe Biden is better now than ever before? Has anyone ever heard him speak like 20 years ago and compared it to him now? It ain't the same, folks. But Joe Scarborough, he'll tell you he's better than ever.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. Mm-hmm. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. And you...
I mean, seriously? First of all, Joe Biden was literally always known as the dumbest person in the United States Senate. By many, the dumbest person in all of Congress. That was his reputation. But Joe Scarborough, really believes that Joe Biden is at his best, folks. Really? Joe Biden's at his best? Who could possibly believe that? The guy gets lost on a stage daily. He has handlers guiding him around. He walks like he's got poopy diapers. I don't even think Joe Biden believes that he's at his best. I certainly don't think his family does. I don't think anyone in the White House does, because they're doing damage control every day. Scarborough is just sucking up to Biden because Morning Joe is Biden's new favorite show or something like that. Well, this morning, a new ad from the super PAC MAGA Inc. ran on Morning Joe. I don't think Biden liked seeing it very much. Check this one out.
What the hell they want. I guess I should clear my mind here a little bit.
We can all see Joe Biden's weakness. If Biden wins, can he even survive till 2029? The real question is, can we? Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yeah, no, that guy's at the top of his game, folks, according to Joe Scarborough. But that's the whole election right there. Can Joe Biden actually survive for 4 more years in office? Will he survive if he's president for 4 more years? Will we? I mean, what's going on in our country, it would be hard to imagine that we could continue this for 4 more years. That would mean another 10 million illegal immigrants and another 20% rise in prices and your mortgage payments. And when it all starts collapsing and tumbling down, I'm sure they'll come up with a great solution to fully bury the American dream. I don't think America can survive another Biden term. Let's hope this is Joe Biden's last State of the Union. We're going to retire Joe Biden in November, and we're going to make America great again. So before we get to Bernie Moreno and Matt Boyle, I have a quick word from our sponsors who have the guts to support this kind of show. Now, this is a great one. This is, I think, our first time you've heard me talk about them as an actual sponsor, but we've got to talk about Public Square. You've heard me say it over and over, guys. We got to support the companies that support us, that share our values. Public Square is the marketplace for the patriot economy, where you can find businesses and consumers who share your values. So whether you go on as a business, whether you go on as a consumer, find the people who share your values. Support them. On Public Square, you can put power behind your purchase. You can let your dollars reflect your values. Talk about voting with your wallet. Do that there. Don't give your money to companies who hate you. Give it to freedom-loving companies who actually support you. And if you're a business, there's millions of consumers looking to find you. List your business on Public Square and move our country one step closer to defeating woke capital. You don't have to choose between what you buy and what you believe anymore, guys. Or choose between what you sell and who you support. So download the Public Square app today or go to publicsquare.com. You know, if you're traveling and you want to find the non-woke coffee shop, there's so much you can do on the app, on the website, and support the patriot economy. And together, we will build that economy and save our country. So again, check them out at publicsquare.com. And we have another new sponsor right here from Rumble, the Rumble Cloud Services. It's going to come very soon, and it's going to allow and provide content creators and businesses with the products and services they need to succeed without fear of cancellation. Rumble has built the cloud for the parallel economy, so you don't have to worry about being canceled or being censored by the big tech giants and losing everything. You've seen when Amazon Web Services does that, it's a disaster. Seems they only cancel people one way, and if you're watching this show, you're probably that way. So Rumble Cloud pricing model will lower costs. It's going to increase savings and give you more predictable budgeting. Exclusively for friends of Rumble, sign up today at friends.rumble.cloud. That's friends.rumble.cloud and receive 30% off the first 3 months of your cloud subscription, which will be available for purchase this spring. And like I said, it's an affordable service that is supported by independent infrastructure. Not one of those where you're back end into the same guys that hate your guts and will cancel you. Independent infrastructure and not linked to big tech, so you won't get canceled by the woke mob. So head to friends.rumble.cloud and sign up today. So with that, folks, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Ohio Senate candidate Bernie Moreno. Bernie, good to have you back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm here in Lorain County, Ohio, the center of Trump country. We're really excited to have this election in 12 days. Nikki Haley's gone, but we're still going to show up and make our voices heard and have record turnout for President Trump.
Well, and I mean, so you have your primary candidate, primary coming up as well. I know I was with you in Ohio last week. I know you were down here doing fundraising. I mean, you're working it hard. What's going on there? How can people go vote early? When does that end? And versus election day, et cetera.
So people have started voting already. Election day is in 12 days, so March 19th. There's me running with President Trump's endorsement and J.D. Vance and Jim Jordan. And I have two Nikki Haley, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney wannabes on the other side. And, they know that President Trump is going to be our 47th president. That's done. That's signed, sealed, and delivered. And so those same people that spent hundreds of millions of dollars to try to tear down President Trump are now going to try to put bad actors in the Senate and the House to try to blunt the agenda, because they know that come January of 2025, we're going to put in the America First agenda in a serious way that we didn't have that opportunity in 17 and 18 because we had a bunch of rhinos that were blocking President Trump every step of the way, as you know.
What do you expect to hear tonight from Joe Biden's State of the Union? I mean, you're around there. We did a bunch of events last week. You're running around Ohio. You're dealing with real people who have real problems, real issues. How have his policies impacted Ohio?
Really working class Americans, Don. You have people who were barely getting by that are now getting by with credit cards. Credit card debt's almost 50%. with high interest rates, inability to refinance their homes. They go to the grocery store, and quite frankly, guys are demasculated when they have to tell their wives and kids that they can't get the large Cheerio box because they just can't afford it. They have to get the white bread instead of the hamburger buns because they can't afford it, even though they've done everything they were supposed to do. They work hard, they go to work, and they see this country giving billions and billions of dollars to house illegal migrants and fight foreign wars, but just won't even take care of American citizens. And they're pissed off and they're sick of it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and again, it is so palpable, around the country. I mean, so obviously you mentioned you're endorsed by my father, by myself, Jim Jordan, J.D. Vance, sort of the rock stars of our movement, and you're running for Senate in Ohio, and God knows, our Senate Republicans, many of them need a little bit of a boost because they're a little bit too weak for me. So I love that's going on, but you're running against. And will be ultimately running against when you win this primary, and I think you will. And everyone should be, if you're in Ohio, go vote for Bernie Moreno. If you know people in Ohio, call them and tell them to vote for Bernie Moreno. Bring your friends. Let's make sure we can stack the deck. I told you to do the same thing with J.D. Vance. He's turned out to be an absolute rock star, and he's also endorsed. So, tell us how important it is to defeat Sherrod Brown and give Ohio sort of that extra Republican senator. I know he sort of plays that margin, pretends he's so many things that he's not, but he's basically a full-fledged Democrat that gets away with, I guess, pretending to be moderate.
Absolutely. He votes with Biden almost 100% of the time. He runs the banking committee in the Senate. He takes his orders from Elizabeth Warren. He's Elizabeth Warren's lapdog. The policies that he espouses are the policies that are hurting and crushing working class Americans. He wants us driving electric cars, not having gas stoves, powering our houses and our businesses with windmills and solar panels. And he's the guy that when push comes to shove, you have to realize this guy's been running for elected office since Richard Nixon was in office. Pretty unbelievable. Never worked in the private sector. This is exactly what's wrong with DC. These lifers are killing us. We need term limits. We need to get these swamp creatures out of there and put outsiders, business people like your father that really made a difference in DC.
Yeah, and it's sort of interesting, right? You see, Ohio produces a Jim Jordan, it produces a J.D. Vance, and yet the other two people that you're running against, your opponents, I mean, they're literally like from the Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, I guess what's left of that, the 0.05% of the party that still believes that stuff. How does that happen? Talk about your opponents so that people understand what they're all about and what that would mean, and what do the voters actually need to know? Or for the people watching that have friends in Ohio or from Ohio, what do they need to know to understand that it's not just a choice between sort of three America First candidate, it's the opposite. It's you, the Trump endorsed candidate who's actually America First, and a bunch of like Washington D.C. swamp creature type rhinos.
Oh, absolutely. So one of them, Matt Dolan, his family owns the Cleveland Indians. Let me just make that clear. The Cleveland Indians. It will never be the other name.
Yeah, by the way, they changed the name, right? Like that's the first tip. If you take the Cleveland Indians, a storied baseball franchise, and you change the name, you bend the knee because probably three woke people complained, and they have to. If you bend the knee for that, you're gonna bend the knee for literally everything out there. So that's all I actually need, though I'm sure there's more.
Exactly. Even worse, believe it or not, last night. He called for amnesty for illegal immigrants. So think about that. Not 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday was saying that we have to provide visas to people who are here illegally to give them a path to residency. Insane. My other opponent is Frank LaRose, the current Secretary of State. This guy's been running for office basically his entire adult life. He's will blow with the wind, whatever it takes. He's a guy that thinks we should be all in for Ukraine. He doesn't think we should be deporting illegals. He's a big government guy. He pretends to be a President Trump supporter, but he's a John Kasich, Mitt Romney type that has even only 2 years ago calling President Trump a racist because he said that Ilhan Omar, she loves her country so much she should go back. And he said, well, that's racist. And even last night said, well, his personality and his tweets weren't great, but I like his policies. Totally false. These guys are so disingenuous. These guys are the ones that would stab him in the back if they ever had a shot at being the United States Senate.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. So, yeah, make sure you guys understand that. Make sure your Ohio friends understand that. Make sure they vote. Bernie, you have, I guess, early voting till like right before, right? And then so you could basically go at any time.
Time. The last day of early voting is Sunday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So go vote before you have a drink. Then we take a pause on Monday, and then election day is on Tuesday. It's important to bank your vote. I said this the other night in the debate, Don, and the media, of course, went crazy. I said vote 11 times. One time, of course, is your vote, but then go find 10 friends, people who don't know the primaries here. We have to send a clear message that Ohio is Trump country and that we're going to put in America first person in the United States Senate to take out Sherrod Brown.
Well, Bernie, thanks so much for all of that. I guess, maybe the last question, because, it's some of the great people of Ohio have really been left behind by a lot of the Biden policies. And in the case of East Palestine, by Joe Biden himself, how do the residents there, how are they faring? How do they feel about Joe Biden? What about the symbolism of just how poorly Biden handled all of that? Literally talking about going, a year after it, Trump was on the ground in a couple of days. I know you've met with the people there. What's going on there?
It's a tale of America first. So 2 or 3 or 4 days after the train derailment and explosion, the town was hurting. Joe Biden, the commander in chief, supposedly, is in Ukraine, giving them more money, more billions of our taxpayer dollars to fight another endless war. President Trump flew up. It was a cold, rainy day. Almost the entire town lined up greeting him because what they sensed in him was empathy. We care about you. We're here. About the town McDonald's, right? A year later, a year goes by, and finally Biden shows up. The entire town showed up again. But this time, the sign said something called FJB. You saw those signs everywhere through East Palestine, Ohio. And they said Trump 2024. They turned their backs on him when he drove down the street because he turned their backs on them. They know what's going on. And this story was not by accident. The Democrats, the elites, they hate white working class Americans. They look at them as incidental people that they have to deal with, ignorant deplorables. And they know that, they feel it, which is why your father is going to win this election by a landslide election. And what we need people in the House and Senate that will have his back, not stabbing him in the back. We have to get the agenda through.
Well, Bernie, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Make sure anyone you know in Ohio, make sure they're voting for Bernie Moreno for the United States Senate there. He's going to help us out. He's going to fight hard for us. Has become a good friend, self-made businessman. He gets it. He understands. Doesn't need to do this, but loves this country and is going to fight for it. So, Bernie, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. And I look forward to getting back up to Ohio to help you win that general.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, guys, so joining me now, Breitbart News DC Bureau Chief, Mr. Matt Boyle. Matty, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Don, always a pleasure. Great to be here.
I feel like the roles are a little bit reversed right now. I'm used to phoning into your radio show on your weekend mornings, and so this is a first. I get to actually grill you now. It's good.
You get to ask me all the tough questions.
Exactly. Well, listen, you recently broke a story that China has increased its market share of medical gloves sold in the United States under Joe Biden. What is going on with all of this? How is Joe Biden actually helping China? I mean, I guess this is the payback for the billions they invested with Hunter and the money to the grandkids and all of this stuff. But how is it actually happening, and why is no one actually talking about this?
Yeah, look, what happened is when your dad was in the White House, what he was doing was, and this was something that really started in earnest with the pandemic, with the beginning of COVID. We started to realize that all of this stuff, this personal protective equipment, was not made in the United States, right? Like, this is a problem that has been around for decades with all the globalization and all of these, companies that have been bringing stuff overseas. And your dad started via the Defense Production Act and other measures that he had taken at the beginning of the pandemic to try to invest to build these factories here in the United States to make this stuff. Now, what we zoned in on in this story in particular is what are called nitrile gloves. So anytime any medical professional touches you, right? So if you go to the doctor's office, you get blood drawn, you get surgery, anything like that, the medical professional has to wear gloves. We go through billions of pairs of these gloves, hundreds of billions of pairs every year in the United States. But it's not just medical professionals. Police officers are wearing them, first responders, medical EMTs, etc. And then in addition to that, anybody that's handling microchips, semiconductors, they're wearing them, and anybody that's handling food are wearing nitrile gloves. So in the course of your everyday life, just going about your life, you're encountering somebody or something, some interaction every day where, multiple different times you're using these gloves. So why don't we make any of them in America? Well, Trump tried to actually get that going, right? Like, so we started seeing the funding for programs during the Trump administration to build these factories, and it was booming, right? Like, we built the factories. They're there right now in Southwest Virginia. They're just not producing anything because the Biden administration screwed the whole thing up at the beginning of the Biden administration. They shifted everything from the Pentagon over to the Department of Health and Human Services and undercut the whole thing. And Senator J.D. Vance, who we just broke on Breitbart, is going to be boycotting the State of the Union this evening. So he's not appearing at the State of the Union address at all. So members of Congress are all allowed to go.
You just broke that story now. He's not even going because of these failures.
Yes. So J.D. Vance is boycotted the State of the Union. But a couple weeks ago, Senator Vance sent this detailed letter to the Secretary at HHS, Javier Becerra, asking for in-depth information about these plants. But the problem is these plants are built. They're there. They just don't have the final steps yet from the Biden administration, the funding that they need to get up and operational to be able to make this stuff here. So what's happened is over the course of the Biden administration, the Chinese Communist Party has increased their market share of the percentage of these gloves that they make. When your dad left office, it was somewhere in the high single digits. Now it's close to majority of the gloves that we import are from China, and it will be on the current trajectory by the end of this year north of 60%. So China could, if they shut off the importation of these nitrile gloves, completely shut down American medicine in a matter of 15 days. If they
and they control. I mean, they make half the antibiotics, they make half the medicines, if not more. I mean, we're really beholden to someone who's proven to be, essentially functioning, as evil individuals. I mean, they knew about COVID, they didn't tell. They stopped travel within China, but not out of China because they were, if they're going to go through it, they're going to make sure the rest of the world suffers with them. I mean, that's pretty clear. I don't want to be beholden to China for just about anything, but watching these guys do that, to take those active steps to make it harder for us to not be commingled with them and dependent on them is truly next level insanity.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And this is why, and last time I was with your dad back in December, we talked about this, is that he was talking about how he was getting this stuff starting to come back to the United States, but the Biden administration screwed the whole thing up. In fact, I think one of the coolest things that you guys could do for the campaign this year would be go to these empty factories. They're there, right? Like, they're there in Southwest Virginia. I know that Virginia is a state that Republicans haven't won in a long time, but they did win it for 50 years in the lead up to 2008. Before then, it was a Republican state in every presidential election except for one. I think showcasing how Biden screwed over these working class people, and there are thousands of jobs that would be there. So these are good, hardworking factory jobs in Southwest Virginia that would be there for American workers that are not there because Joe Biden is the president. And we're every one of our law enforcement, medical professionals, food handlers, et cetera, in the United States is now dependent on the Chinese Communist Party for the gloves that they wear every day. I think showcasing that would be fantastic. And it's not just gloves; it's everything.
Yeah, no, it's so much. We've sold our soul to save 2 cents on a widget, and that's corporate. That's a big part of corporate America as well. I mean, we got to bring that back. But what do you think? As we get into the State of the Union tonight, what do you think's been Joe Biden's biggest failure as president? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of them, but what's the worst?
I mean, I think the border has to be the number one thing here. I mean, there are millions of people in this country right now that wouldn't be here if Joe Biden wasn't the president, right? Like these crimes that are happening, you see the obvious horrific stories of people like Laken Riley, who was killed in Georgia. But sadly, she's not the only one, right? Like there was a few weeks ago, we have a whole reporting team at Breitbart that's dedicated to covering this. There was a few weeks ago, there was a 2-year-old kid killed just outside Washington, D.C. in our nation's capital, right? Every day you turn on the news, you see another one of these stories. 5 minutes down I don't know how I pulled this off, Don, but I live in Florida, but I'm the Washington bureau chief for Breitbart. But like 5 minutes down the street from my house, a police officer, a decorated sergeant here in St. Johns County was killed by an illegal alien. And now they just got the charges dropped against the illegal alien because he apparently couldn't speak English and couldn't understand the orders the officer was giving him before he killed him. It's unbelievable, right? Like, so these stories are everywhere, and these wouldn't have happened if Joe Biden wasn't the president. These people weren't here to commit these crimes. If we actually enforced our immigration laws, these people would be alive today.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, imagine they're letting someone go kill the cop. I mean, you see that, but you've seen this in Europe. They were doing that, hey, well, it's a cultural difference, because all cultures are created equal, apparently. It's a cultural difference. They rape children. We got to let them go. So they didn't know that you can't do that. They got to put up signs in, public pools to make sure there's no raping going on. I mean, and we're doing this and we're letting them go. Are they trying to destroy our country?
I think that's the only real explanation here, right? Because now, and what you're going to see from Biden tonight is that he's going to try to blame everybody else for all the problems.
No, it's everyone's fault but his, yeah.
He's going to blame Republicans in Congress and your dad for the immigration problem, even though that bill that they came up with would have made it 10 times worse. It wouldn't have made it any better. But he's going to try that. On inflation, he's going to blame companies. He's going to come up with this term shrinkflation. I've seen that one around the media, and he's going to try to say he's going to raise taxes on companies and stuff. He's going to blame other people for all the foreign policy failures. The problem is here, Biden doesn't take any responsibility for all of the problems that he's created. And the biggest one, to get back to your original question there, is clearly the border, no doubt.
So I guess it was this week was the 12-year anniversary of Andrew Breitbart's death. Can you talk about how he changed the landscape of conservative media forever?
Well, I mean, Andrew was a really good friend of mine. I didn't actually work at Breitbart until after he passed away, but we were very close. And frankly, my personal path in life changed because of him. I'd been a reporter at Daily Caller back in the day, and after he passed away, I made the decision that I was going to come over here and work at Breitbart because of what I learned from him. I think that his approach to doing things. First off, he was a really funny person, right? Like he was, I think you can appreciate that. Your sense of humor is very strong. I know that. I see your rallies a lot, and it's like a stand-up act sometimes. Andrew was a lot like that, right? Like he had a really fantastic sense of humor. But more importantly, I think that what he brought was a kind of a view of looking at the media, Hollywood, the political class, the establishment, et cetera, all of these different things that that we're zoning in on, all of these different bigs, if you will, right? The original Breitbart side was kind of broken into big government, big Hollywood, big journalism. He kind of looked at them like, who cares what they're doing, and we're going to go fight them and beat them anyway. He understood that we were in a war, right? Like, so, I mean, he's famous for, #war and that mentality. And because of that, I think he kind of taught us all how to fight back in a way that, we're kind of like, reaching around in the dark. We didn't know how to fight back against. We had all these loser establishment Republicans. Mitt Romney was the Republican nominee in 2012. I mean, that's not that long ago, right? Like that's 12 years ago. and John McCain before that, and these establishment Republican guys, they might be nice guys, but they go lose gracefully, right? Like, and then the Democrats were just running train over us, and now we have this fight back mentality that has taken over the conservative movement. He's the guy who started that, really, back in the day.
So, I mean, there's no question. I think you guys continue to do great work with that. But I guess the one thing I get asked often is, what happened to like Matt Drudge and the Drudge Report? I mean, that used to be a place that people would go to check. Serious people went to go check it out. It seems like it's been taken over, by the writers of The Atlantic. It's like left-wing propaganda insanity at this point. It's lost all of its luster. What happened there? What do you think? Is he just checked out? Did someone buy it and sort of reverse the policies? What's going on?
I don't think someone bought it. I think it's still him. I don't really know. I've only met him like once or twice over the years, very briefly, and had very limited interaction with him. He would frequently put up Breitbart links. He doesn't really do that much anymore. So I don't know. It must be something personal. It beats me. I genuinely don't know the answer there. I wish I did. If I did know the answer, I would tell you, but I just don't know.
So with Breitbart, I mean, you really disrupted a lot of the media establishment, right? Talk about that trajectory. How do you see that coming now? I mean, honestly, like so much of the mainstream stuff that's out there, even the conservative stuff is literally unwatchable for me these days. Things that I would have probably watched 2-3 years ago. It's just it's just not doing it anymore. What's going on in sort of conservative media that continues to evolve and change? Because it feels pretty palpable to me right now.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of other places out there that have kind of gone different directions. You see some places like our friends over at the Daily Wire seem to try to be going down the streaming route. What Breitbart's doing is we're trying to become the almost like the New York Times of the publication of record for our audience, right? Like, and so what we want to do is have full spectrum coverage of major events like tonight with the State of the Union. I have a team of a dozen or so reporters that are standing by. I've got 2 guys in the Capitol right now. I've got a whole team of reporters standing by to write up fact checks and different angles on different things. We do the same thing on like a major election night, like the other night on Super Tuesday. But also then just throughout the course of a news week, we're chasing major stories. So we're doing a balance of making sure that we have every major element of the news of the day up on the website, but then also original stuff, right? So one of the big things that we've done originally in the last couple of weeks has been we've had this series on Fani Willis, right? Like, and some of the people in her office and some really cool stories from our own Wendell Husebo on that front. But then we also have done these deep dive. So our senior contributor here at Breitbart, Peter Schweitzer, who I know you had on last week, came out with his book Blood Money, and we've had a number of different verticals going into the various revelations in there about the Bidens, about China, about TikTok, and so on and so forth. And that those things have helped propel his book to the #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. But again, what we're trying to do is have day-to-day, in and out, nonstop coverage and really compelling content so that everybody across the country that doesn't trust the establishment media, which is frankly the vast majority of Americans, has a place they can go multiple times a day to get their update. If they go to our homepage at Breitbart.com, they can see the major stories of the day, our main lead story, and then the top few on the right. They can, just by even reading the headlines, get a sense of, okay, this is what the news is this morning. This is what the news is when I got home from work. And we kind of want to be that place that brings everybody together in that regard. And is the way I see it is to the vast majority of Americans, to Trump supporters out there around the country, if it isn't on Breitbart, it didn't happen. Right. And so we want to be the place that tells those stories. So,
if we're going to compare and contrast, say Breitbart to the rest of the media, they're going to, tonight it's going to be interesting, right? So much of the media is just a mouthpiece for Joe Biden. It's the marketing arm of the Democrat Party. They're going to try to frame the speech as a win no matter what. But behind the scenes, what do you think Biden's speechwriters, what are they going to see as a win?
if Joe Biden can get up there and read off the teleprompter without trailing off for, or like falling down off the stage, that's a win, right? Like Joe Biden wrote exactly 0 words in this speech tonight, right? Like all he has to do is walk into the chamber without falling down, get up there to the podium, read off the speech off the teleprompter, and do it in a decent enough cadence, etc., and then walk back out of the chamber without falling down. If he does those things, they will frame it as a win, right? The people who wrote the speech are these people around him in the White House and throughout the administration, the Democrat Party. I think it's a markedly different type of a thing, compared to your dad's speeches, which were very powerful. And he would go off script a lot. He does. Oh, yeah. I see the prepared remarks, right? Like,
that's when they're just like, okay, Don, you got to fix this one. He's off script. And I'm like, oh, shit, we got it.
It's harder to cover your dad's speeches than it is to cover Biden's, because all Biden does is just read off the teleprompter. Whereas your dad, you have some very he had some very unique moments where he goes with it, right? He just kind of goes with it and sees where it goes, and those are some of the best moments with Trump, right? Like, so it's Biden. They're literally going to frame this as a win for Biden if he just delivers the remarks in the teleprompter. That's it. That's all they need, right? I mean, they literally didn't charge him with a crime because his own Justice Department and a special counsel said that he's an elderly man with a poor memory, right? So if he can get up there and somewhat show that maybe that isn't fully the case, right? Like that's what they're going to try to say is a win for him.
What's the deal with? I'm reading. There's 2 intermissions. What is that so they could give him some sort of stimulants to keep him going? What I've never heard of that before.
I've never heard of that either. That's news to me. I'm gonna have to look into that.
I saw it on Twitter. I was like, I don't know if it's real, but I heard there was gonna be 2 intermissions, and I'm like, 2? Like it's not that long. Like it's what do you mean? Like. But I was sort of curious to see what was going on. It wouldn't surprise me that he would need an intermission, but I was surprised that they're actually doing it and saying it. But again, it could totally be false. But I read it on social before I got on here and went live, and I was like, "What? 2 intermissions?"
I don't know. News to me. I'm gonna.
It was a joke. Okay, so it must have been like someone must have taken it. Oh, okay. Was that Spicer? Okay. I was like, man, I never heard of it, but I thought it was real for a second. So I guess they got me. But
I even thought that was serious. Shows you just how bad.
No, but that's the point. Like, if they said it for my father, I'd be like, yeah, that's got to be BS. But like with Joe Biden, it's like, I listen. If you're Joe Biden's handlers, there's a solid chance you do need him to stop, to regroup, to start over, to get comfortable, to change a diaper, whatever. Like, so no, it seems ridiculous, and that's why I was asking. I was like, well, I've never heard of this, but like, I'm not at all surprised. It's like you're being punked, like The Onion or Babylon Bee about Biden. It's like, I don't know. It's probably true.
But I could totally see it being true, right? Like, so we'll see how he does tonight. Look, I think they're going to get there. The media is going to frame it as this big win. But the things that I'm looking for are the actual content of the speech, right? Like, that's what the people around Biden are focused on. And they're going to be trying to, again, like I said, there's going to be a heavy focus on blaming everyone else for all the problems that he created. So he's going to do his best to blame other people for inflation and blame other people for the border crisis, rather than take ownership of it and actually try to solve it. But we know he can solve it in 30 seconds. Yeah. All he has to do is undo the more than 60 executive orders that he did and reinstall Remain in Mexico and reinstall the deals with the Northern Triangle countries and end catch and release, which he can do with the stroke of a pen. He could do it tonight, right? Like, and he doesn't want to do it. So that brings back to the question, do they want to destroy the country? Yeah. Like, I mean, they're literally deliberately doing this stuff. It is proactive. They set it in motion. They knew what they were doing when they did it.
Where do you think Democrats see the trajectory of, Biden heading into the convention this summer? Are they sort of tied to him no matter what at this point? Do you think that, that we're gonna switch him out last minute is a reality, is a real thing? Does it sort of depend on the next couple of months? Or is this sort of pre-baked? Because I don't think anyone would be surprised that they would do anything to win and will. Where do you think that's going?
So first off, Democrats don't follow rules, right? Like, there are no rules for them, so they can do whatever the heck they wanted. That being said, it'd be very difficult see somebody else like come in at the convention, like a Michelle Obama come out of nowhere or something. And I saw her spokesperson out there the other day saying that she's not doing that. And, and I kind of take them at their word. It would be a big step for Michelle Obama to come out of nowhere and try to run for president this cycle. But I do think that one possibility, if it keeps getting worse, right? If the polls keep getting bigger and bigger leads for Trump over Biden, we keep seeing the swing states moving further and further away. And the more important thing to the Democrats is what happens down ticket, right? So where are these Senate candidates, right? You just had on Bernie Moreno, who's fantastic in Ohio. So does Sherrod Brown start trailing Bernie Moreno by double digits in Ohio? Do we see a similar situation with Tester and Sheehy in Montana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And if it starts becoming clear that the Democrats are headed not just for a loss at the White House level, but a wipeout down ticket, I could see at the convention some last second chicanery of a switch out, not for somebody like Michelle Obama, but they would bring in Kamala. And knowing that they're going to lose the White House by doing that, they hope that she can turn out those uncommitted voters that we're seeing in places like Michigan and Minnesota for the down ticket candidates to protect their losses. Because if things keep getting worse for them, you start getting to, if you do the math here, Ohio, Montana, West Virginia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. You could be getting to a point where Republicans are getting into the high 50s in terms of Senate seats after this next election. So the only thing I could see, like the break glass in case of emergency thing, is a switch out to Kamala to protect the down ticket if it's really, really bad and much worse than it is right now.
Yeah, I guess, with respect to the House, impeachment inquiry, the chatter seems to be that there's still as many as like 20 House Republicans who are a no on impeachment. What's driving that inside Capitol Hill? Because, it could not be more clear that none of this stuff was above board, that none of it was legitimate. Like, there's literally no other plausible solution. But what are your sources in D.C. telling you about that? The evidence is so overwhelming that it's foreign corruption, and yet you have plenty of Republicans that just aren't willing to do it.
It's so obvious, right? They literally, there's money transfers into the bank accounts of the Biden family members, right? Like, you don't even have to show money to Biden himself, even though I think they have. But the fact is that you don't even have to show that. Paying off a family member is enough here, right? Like, and so the evidence is overwhelming against the Biden family for corruption. He should be impeached. I don't understand why. Look, I think that a lot of it is that several of these establishment Republicans have all sorts of other priorities that are not necessarily like the interests of the voters of their districts, right? They want to see the spending keep going. They want to see more money for Ukraine. They want to do open borders, immigration deals, right? Like they also are trying to balance tough re-election fights in some cases, right? Some of them are in Biden-heavy districts, right? Like some of these establishment Republicans. So, but some of them aren't, right? Like, and you kind of saw that a little bit during the speakership fight last year after they got rid of McCarthy, and then there was the push for Jordan. You saw like there were like these 25 Republicans we'd never heard of, right? Like that blocked Jordan multiple times, and those guys, that's kind of like the face of the swamp, if you will, right? Like they're like appropriations committee guys and so on and so forth. So, look, the party's changing and in a good way. We're seeing it move in the right direction during the Trump years and even in the lead up to that, as far back as 2010, 2012, et cetera. But it can't happen fast enough, right? Yeah. Like, so we're getting rid of as many of the bad guys and we're bringing in as many of the good guys as we can, but it takes time.
What are the big stories that are out there that the rest of the media are just totally missing right now? Or conveniently not reporting on, right? Because they do that too, right? It's not really news if they just neglect it and don't report on it. But what are the ones they miss?
I think that the corruption around Fani Willis and whatnot, and just the involvement of the White House in these various corrupt prosecutions, whether it's the Fannie Willis one or the Alvin Bragg one or the Jack Smith stuff, et cetera. I think that's a big story that they're missing. I also think that the general the people out there across the country, I think are so disgusted with Washington right now, that you're not really seeing that, like whether it's economic policy, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's in the Ukraine aid, et cetera, right? I mean, that's one of the things the media is just so focused on. They're so focused on Ukraine, and in this latest stuff is the Biden's going to supposedly say tonight that he's going to send in the military to build a port in Gaza, right? Like, why are they building a port in Gaza instead of a wall on our border, right? Like, why can't the military go build a wall on the border, right? So, like, just this general disgust with the political class in Washington, I think, is another thing that they don't really capture, and and I think it's because they live in their little bubble. I don't know if you noticed this. There was a clip of Jen Psaki, who was the press secretary for Biden, on a Super Tuesday night. She's on MSNBC with all the other wine club ladies there, right? And Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow, right? Like, and she's talking about how the exit polls showed that immigration was the #1 issue in the Virginia primaries, right? Like, and this is Republicans and Democrats polled, right? Like, immigration is the #1 issue. And she's like, I don't see how that's the case, right? Like, it's just, she's trying to explain it away, right? Like, and I think that they ignore the voters' concerns on these things at their own peril. It reminds me a lot of 2016, right? The forgotten man and woman. And I think that if Trump zones in on those people and gets out to those places, like I'm talking about there at the outset, like the factories that are not working down in Southwest Virginia, and these factories are everywhere in America, by the way. They're not just
no, that's all. We could do so much more, but they've just made it so hard. It's crazy.
That's how he wins. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the other ones I've seen a lot about, and starting to take hold, is this whole thing with debanking. There seems to be that major effort by the bureaucracy to use code words to target transactions. Seemingly only go one way. I read, they're canceling people who bought the Bible and who went to Bass Pro Shops because they're probably conservative leaning. Have you guys covered that much, or what have you found?
A little bit. So we'll zone in on it when we got a story about it. No, I agree with you. I think it's a thing. You're seeing it specifically around the J6 folks, right? Like, so they will go after these folks if somebody was even in the vicinity of Washington D.C. on that day. They've been targeting their bank accounts and stuff and shutting them down. We've seen a lot of stories about that. It's particularly disgusting. I think it's part of they're trying to make it impossible to be a conservative in America, right? Like, they want to make it impossible for you to go about your life if you are a Trump supporter, if you are a conservative in this country. They want to, the debanking is part of that. There's other elements of it too, but it's all about trying to shut you down and keep you from speaking out or being part of life. If you speak out as a conservative, they come after you at work, right? Like, if you speak out as a conservative somewhere in this country, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to work at a company that believes in free speech at Breitbart. But I mean, if I said some of the things that I'm saying in this interview right now, and I worked at even an establishment media outlet, or somebody that even something that wasn't even in the media at all, I would be fired, right? Like, and so, I mean, that's the thing, is that they want to cancel anybody, and they want to make it impossible for those of us to have our voices heard.
Yeah. Well, what do you see the Breitbart followers? Obviously the border is a big one for everyone. Like, what are the other big ones for them? In the grassroots. That's really that is the base. Hopefully you're getting and appealing to more people as you get out of that. But what are some of the biggest ones for them outside of the border?
In terms of major issues, I would say that the foreign policy stuff, right? Like, so stopping the more aid to Ukraine and that stuff is a big thing. I think the Second Amendment is also a major issue. You see that all the time. So guns is a huge issue. The left wants to do gun control. You're probably going to hear Biden push for more gun control tonight. He has in the last couple State of the Unions. In addition to that, again, just making sure people's voices are heard, right? They want to hear their voices heard. And then China. China, standing up to the Chinese Communist Party. People are very afraid of China's control over our supply chains. They're very concerned with that, and they want to see our leaders, actually have a plan to stand up to the CCP. So I would say it's all of those things, plus obviously the economy. The economy is, obviously front and center up there with immigration.
So you had a big story last month about the Swamp's plot to pressure Republicans into signing off on Biden's green energy scam. What do you find there? Because I mean, that Republicans would fall for this nonsense after what we've seen go on in the world right now is pretty amazing. But what was the story behind that?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing. So we got a hold of this document. It's like a 60-page document or something. What it is from a major energy association, right? So these are one of the trade associations that represent a number of the green energy companies. So throughout the document, they're planning for the future of their lobbying efforts on Capitol Hill and whatnot, and they're actually kind of already acting like your dad is going to win the election in November. And so what they're doing is they're going to try to protect the subsidies that the Biden presidency, through the horribly named Inflation Reduction Act, is what they call it.
So,
right?
So it's like the economic version of what they were doing with Ukraine funding. Like, we're going to fund it for 3 years, and if you remove that funding, it's an impeachable offense, and therefore if Trump wins, or when Trump wins, you're still stuck paying for Ukraine for no reason with no articulated goals.
Right. So what they want to do is there's this energy association is they're planning to pressure, and they literally name dozens of Republicans, lawmakers that they intend to go after. That they're, and by the way, they're smart, right? Like if you want to figure out who the rhinos are, go look at this list. I mean, they know what they're doing on the left. But these are the energy companies that are part of this association that got the tax dollars from the Inflation Reduction Act, the green energy tax dollars, the subsidies from the federal government. They want to make sure their subsidies keep going. So what they're going to try to do is, if your dad wins the election and Republicans take Congress in November, and this is the only contingency plan they have. They don't have a plan laid out for if Biden wins, right? They're like assuming that it's already a foregone conclusion. So official Washington is already assuming that it's a foregone conclusion that Biden's going to lose and that Trump is going to be the president again. And they're planning for how they're going to protect the tax dollars that they got during the Biden presidency, and to keep them from being repealed in a future Trump presidency with a Republican Congress, which is why I think it's really important. And they literally talk about like their meetings with this senator and that senator. They have a whole paragraph about Senator John Cornyn and how they've built a relationship with him from Texas and whatnot, and which is really interesting because he's apparently running for leader to try to replace McConnell. I don't know what's going to happen on that front at this point, but they're literally planning for the return of Trump to Washington, and we're seeing this across the media, across official Washington. They've almost, it's like this foregone conclusion. It's like this inevitability, which Trump didn't have in 2016. And I think it works in his favor in a big time this year, that these folks are expecting that he's going to be the president again.
Yeah, it almost feels like, again, they're going to play whatever games possible and stuff like that, but it almost feels like they can't go all in like they did in 2020 without COVID and this, because also Joe Biden is so bad, right? You've experienced life under both people now. It's not like you're selling this dream that, Joe Biden's incredibly competent. He's going to get us back to normal. Like, no one believes that. So it's like, I feel like they're almost limited in how far they can take their cheating, their lies, because I don't think anyone would actually believe that Joe Biden could pull off another 2020 where, everything magically happens in the 2:00 hour and he's ahead because he's the most popular guy ever in Atlanta and Philadelphia, Detroit. And like, I think they're limited because they would actually destroy democracy because everyone would be like, it's over. That doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right. And by the way, they're also, and this is the most important thing, is that when he gets there, right, like he's going to be ready for this because official Washington is going to resist him at every turn, right? We just saw the District of Columbia primary. right? Like where all these quote unquote Republicans, which aren't really Republicans, voted for Nikki Haley it's the only primary she won other than Vermont. So she won the communist state of Vermont, and she won with Bernie Sanders, right? So she can go pal around with him in District of Columbia. But that's the lobbyists, right? Those are the establishment Republicans that we're talking about here. They're going to stand in his way. They're going to do everything they can to keep your dad's legislative agenda from being accomplished if he gets back to the White House. And so he's going to be ready for that, because these people are going to do everything they can, and they're going to lean on these establishment Republicans, which is why, again, we need to get as many of the good guys like Bernie Moreno and these other ones in all these other races. That's one of the big things we try to do at Breitbart too, is highlight all these good candidates that are running down ticket for House races, Senate races, governor's races.
We got to get involved in the dog catcher races at this point, school board, all of these things, because it's not about the presidency. There's a serious component of me like, I don't want to win the presidency if we don't have the Senate and the House, because I know like I'm going to get brought up on charges again, and you have to testify before Congress. We'll see never-ending impeachments. Like we got to win everything across the board. But before we go, Matt, any little crystal ball on some of the stories you think we'll probably see between now and November? Whether it's the tricks, whether it's the made-up stuff, what kind of manipulation will they be out there, et cetera?
They're going to keep trying more and more weaponization anywhere they can. So we saw this in the aftermath of the Fani Willis thing collapsing and Trump winning the nomination formally with Nikki Haley dropping out of the race earlier this week, where Arizona is now talking about stuff, right? So they're heating up out there on different things. So you're going to see this continue to pop up, where they're going to keep weaponizing things against Trump and all of his supporters. In addition to that, you're going to see, and I think you're really going to see this tonight from Biden. And you saw this in the New Yorker story, where Biden and several of his senior top aides did this big feature piece with them earlier in the week. And it's worth a read, even though it's leftist propaganda, just because you want to see what the enemy is saying and what they're thinking. But they're going to go hard on this democracy is under attack narrative. They're all in on it. They're bought in on it entirely. I don't think it works. I don't think people are buying it. But their belief is that people are eventually going to buy it. So I don't know if they're right on that or not. I don't think so. I think they're making
It's sort of hard to sell that one with a straight face when you're the one literally jailing your political opposition. You're the one that's pushing censorship. You're the one, you can say it, but it's like, it seems like you guys don't understand what it means, because you're doing all of the things you're saying are a threat to democracy.
Correct, but somehow they have mastered. I guess they have no conscience and no soul, right? Like they actually can legitimately, with a straight face, do it, and they're going to. By the way, they're going to all year. So get ready for that. Those are going to be the major things over the course of this year.
Well, Matt, I appreciate it, guys. Check out Matt Boyle. Listen to him on the radio. Obviously, follow Breitbart. I'm sure you all do. Really appreciate having you on, Matt. Look forward to being back on your show sometime soon, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot in the not-too-distant future, buddy. Thanks for being here. Guys, I got to address one of the things I keep seeing coming up in the live chat over here. People are saying, Don, you look so tired. I am. Okay, I am. I don't like doing the makeup thing. I can't do it. It's just, I can't do it to make it look better. So if I look tired, it's because I am. Went up with Kim yesterday. We went to D.C., did a fundraiser for my dad there. And, it was pretty swampy for me, I guess. But we put some pretty impressive people in a room. A couple hundred congressmen all came. They were hosting the thing with me. I was sort of the keynote and the head there. You had, about 40 senators. It was a pretty impressive list. Again, a little swampy. There were definitely some people showing up to raise money for my father that probably wish that more states went the way of Vermont. I said that too because I don't care. I say it anyway. But then we had a sort of a breakout dinner. Actually got to sit with a bunch of senators. As Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, sat across from him. First time he was friendly with a lot of my friends, but I didn't know him all that well. Had a really good talk. Liked the guy a lot, actually. Thought that was great to be able to do. But we stayed at this sort of smaller dinner with just some, some of the fighters. J.D. Vance was there. A bunch of guys like that. And stayed out pretty late. Had to get up really early. Fly back here. And so, yes, don't call me Sleepy Don. That's a capital offense in the Trump family. If you're Sleepy Don, or we saw what happened with Jeb, low energy Jeb. So I'm not low energy. I'm still allowed. My eyes are probably drooping a little bit because I got like 4 hours of sleep. But yes, so that I will address it. I'll let you know. But it was actually pretty amazing. I'll post just the host committee, but it's everyone, like literally almost all of the Republicans in Congress at this point. So I think it was actually, according to a couple of people, they thought it was like probably the biggest room of those kind of DC power players assembled ever that wasn't like the president or perhaps the nominee from the other side. So again, sure, a lot of the people didn't want to be there for me, but they're going to show up anyway now, and I think that's an important component of that unity. So yes, I got to go see DC, maybe try to woo some of those Nikki Haley voters over there, and had a good one. But that's why I look tired if I look tired. So I appreciate you guys. That was a fun one. Guys, make sure to go check out our great sponsors, right? Go download the Public Square app. Publicsquare.com. Go there. Give your money to companies that share your values. Find businesses. Support them. This is about supporting small business. Pull it up in your browser right now, publicsquare.com. Also, check out friends.rumble.cloud. Sign up today. Protect yourself against big tech cancellation. Rumble's going to do their own cloud. You won't be dependent on Amazon. We know how they feel about conservatives. This is a no-brainer. So between Public Square, Rumble Cloud, friends.rumble.cloud, get there, sign up. This spring, going to be big, and we're going to divest from being trapped by the leftists at big corporate around America. So our sponsors, they keep this show going. They're the ones doing that. We can vote with our wallets. Okay, go support those businesses. Check them out. At Public Square, again, you can find the other businesses. Find the coffee shop in your neighborhood that actually shares your values. Put their kid through, soccer practice, whatever it is, as opposed to going to Starbucks and having your money weaponized against you. Seems like a no-brainer. I'm going to run over to Locals real quickly, do the AMA over there. So if you're on Locals, go check that out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Hit the like button. I see how many people are watching. I don't see the same number of likes. It's pretty easy. Takes 2 seconds. Go do that. And then I got to take my daughter to dinner. She called last minute, wanted to grab dinner with Dad. Doesn't happen all that often, so I'm going to be quick on Locals, but I will go there because I said I would. So you guys be good. Have a great one, and I will talk to you on Monday.